everybody, welcome to 54 Nights. This weekend, I'm not going to say today because this looks like a bit of a chore, but this weekend I'm going to put on the brake controller so we can tow this thing behind the RV. But I suppose first things first, we got to make sure this thing will fit in the garage because I had a lift kit put on it. It looks like it might fit. That was easy. The next question, I suppose, is am I going to have to take the top totally down? I've got it open so I can see what I'm doing in here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull it all the way down. Well, I get to pull the top off real quick. Then I can get it rest away in the garage. I'm pulling the top off so I can see what I'm doing in here. That dark top, and there's no light just right here like there is in other vehicles, or sometimes they're up here. So I'll leave the top off so I can see what I'm doing in here, because I got a little bit of work to do in here with that brake controller. We'll talk about that after I get the top off. Okay, top off, in we go. So let's pull the parking brake first. So the thing about this brake controller, it's a brake controller we've had in the Subaru. It was what we had put in the Subaru when we bought it. Well, I've gone dark. Okay, so the brake controller, we got the Demco Stay N. Demco bought them a couple of years ago. It was the one we run in the Subaru and love it. It's just, I mean, once you get it installed, once we get through the pain of getting this installed, it is just so simple. You plug everything up, you know, do what you need to do with your vehicle as far as putting in certain gear or whatever, and then you just kick a switch and you're good to go. You don't have to get out this big old bundle and stick it in the floorboard and attach it to the brake pedal. None of that. It's all done once the installation is done. So it's a great option. It's an expensive option, but it's a great option. Yeah, it's about, I don't know, $1,200 I think is what we paid for it. Sorry, I'm in the garage. Lighting is hard to get right in my dimly lit garage. But yeah, it was like $1,200, and that's just for the part. Now, if I want to take it in and have some camping store install it, that's going to be several $100. And I mean, I'm not made of money. You're not made of money. So I mean, well, okay, maybe you are. But I'm not. So I get to be the one to install it, and it's going to take me a while because I think I've said before, I'm slow. I'm meticulous. Slow. I just want to get it right the first time and not have to go back and work on it later. So, and like I said, this box right here, this box right here, hopefully I can get it where you can see it. I mean, there we go, the bad lighting in the garage, sorry. This is the controller, and in our Subaru it's under the hood, and that's where you typically put it. Some people have put it actually, you know, mounted it in their bumper. The one in the Subaru is actually almost next to the battery, and it sits there just fine. It's been there for, well, we just celebrated our 4th anniversary of owning this motorhome, so it's been there for 4 years. The problem with the Wrangler, the Jeep Wrangler, the JLs, not necessarily the JKs, I don't know what the JKs look like under the hood, but the JLs, the problem is this 3.6 liter motor, It takes up everything. There is no real estate. No place for me to put this thing. I could put it down here technically. I could rig something up to put it down there, mount it to the firewall, make a bracket of some sort to hold it there. The thing is, this Jeep is not a mall crawler. Or not going to be a mall crawler. Right now, she's just as much a pavement princess as most of them out there are. But I'm building this Jeep so that we can take it off-road. Now, we've got the lift, we've got the big tires and nice wheels that with the twist of the wrist they air themselves down. So the thing is, I'm taking this off-road and there's going to be some water crossings involved. That thing, the way the manual reads, it's, you know, water resistant. I mean, it's kind of funny how it puts it. It's like, you know, don't put it where rain is going to be hitting it constantly. And I've got a stray dog in my garage. A little dachshund. And another stray dog in my garage. Not a little dachshund. Sorry. But yeah, there's going to be some water crossings involved in some of our trips. And if I put it under the hood, especially down underneath that brake booster like that, there's pretty good chances going underwater. So I want to avoid that. So what I came across on surfing the interwebs, because that's how we learn how to do everything today, isn't it? I mean, come on, you're here watching me and I'm not qualified to tell you how to do this. Just telling you right now, I'm not qualified. Matter of fact, you'll probably see me mess up a few times and you'll probably put something down in the comments telling me how I am so dumb. You don't have to tell me. Terry tells me that all the time, which, by the way, she's babysitting right now. That's why she's not here helping me record this, so this could be fun. Okay, so in my bouncing around on the interwebs, I found a couple of guys, or gals, I don't know. They had guy-type screen names, but that doesn't mean much. They put it under the front, under the driver's seat, and then ran the tubing and the wires up through this kick panel trim right here, and then up through the firewall, because the tubing has to go to an airline on the brake booster. So that is what I'm going to do with this. You know, and this tubing, this airline, it's actually a pretty good size. I mean, hopefully you can see that. I'll get it closer to my face here. And then I think it's only like two wires out of this bundle that actually need to go through the firewall. That's how I'm gonna put it in, is under that driver's seat, run the tubing through the firewall and the wires that need to go through the firewall, and then it has to be tied into the airline going to the brake booster, and it also gets wow, this thing is just slow adjusting to the light. It also needs to go to the controller for the brake pedal itself, so, and an airline going to the cylinder that operates the brake pedal. So since I'm drilling through the firewall, I got me a couple of different size grommets here. I was at Lowe's the other day and thought, well, let me grab a couple of different size grommets and I'll just use the one I need, because I don't want that metal cutting into the wire or the tubing going through the firewall. And then I'll fill that hole with, you know, silicone or whatever. You know, stuff some toilet paper in it. Now, just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. Not going to show you a whole lot. I'll show you kind of each step because I'm on my own here doing this, but you'll get the gist of the idea. I'm going to read those instructions for like the 30th time. I mean, this type of stuff, it's intimidating for me. I'm kind of mechanically inclined, but still, you got all these moving parts and all these wires, little intimidating for me, so I'm gonna read those instructions again and then pull out the drill and go to town. So back here behind the clutch pedal, that is the hole that I drilled. Oh, to run the yeah, that's the hole I drilled to run the tubing and the wires through. I will cut an X in that carpet, and I have to go another trip to hardware store, see if I can find a grommet that is a better fit. The two grommets I had, one was way too big and the other one just barely fit, but it was too small for the hose and the wires to go through. So I needed just a slight bit bigger. This one was 1 1/8 inches. Lowe's didn't have a real good selection, so I'm gonna probably end up over at Ace or somewhere else. But on to the next part. Yeah, there's just not a whole lot of room in this little 2-door Wrangler, and it even gets better because it's a manual transmission, so it's got a stick shift. So I mounted that box right there, and my foot clears it. I've climbed on there and I've operated the clutch, and my foot clears it just fine. I know I'm going to accidentally kick it, but I can't put it further back because what happens when I put it further back, that clutch goes in and it ends up hitting the adjustment knob. So if you've got an automatic transmission, not a big deal. You can put it further back, which is probably more where it should be, but I've got this stick shift, so that's where that's got to go. So the next step is to install this cylinder on the brake pedal. The big concern is, looking at the instructions and everything, is the cylinder mounted on the brake pedal arm, and then this cable at the top goes back and is mounted to the firewall, and it's got to be a straight shot. So I've got to figure out where on that brake pedal this goes, and actually once I put it on there, I can kind of adjust it up and down once I figure out where I'm going to mount the cable mount. Okay, I've got that cylinder mounted on there, and one of the things I did, I pointed it away from the foot pad for the brake pedal, and that was try to give myself some clearance for my monster feet. The other thing that you need to consider if you have a manual transmission is to make sure you've got clearance for the clutch. So that's not tight on there. I just kind of got it snug so it'd stay in place, and I got in the Jeep and operated the brake and the clutch pedal. So after operating both pedals, I have the clearance, so hopefully that's where it's going to go. The next step is to pull that cable out and the mount for the cable on the firewall, and to make sure I can get a straight-ish line from there. You've got like 1 inch of play according to the little piece of paper in the package, so I'll probably take a piece of tape and tape that cable mount to the wall, and then operate the brake pedal a couple of times to make sure I'm not coming in at an odd angle or pulling out at an odd angle. and then mount it to the firewall. Yeah, most of you are running a base plate, so you'll just mount this breakaway switch to the base plate. I'm not going to be running a base plate. Regardless, this bumper mounts to the frame of the Jeep pretty solid, and I've got some connections to mount to the D-ring brackets here on the bumper. So anyway, all that aside, I got to find a place to put this breakaway switch. I don't want to put it under the bumper, which, I mean, really, if I was to put it up under here, I mean, that would be a really good location for it. Except if I'm on the trail and I slap a rock with that thing. Not a good situation. My second option was to mount it up here, and that's actually, that would work out just fine. It really would. A little unsightly. I mean, yeah, it's a Jeep. I mean, I'm not real concerned with how it looks, but then again, if I can avoid making it look bad. So what we have under here are the bucktooth portions of the frame on the Jeep, and convenient holes, so I could mount it right up here. Which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to mount it right there on one of those buck teeth, probably the buck tooth that's nearest where the battery and all the power stuff is, because that's where the wires are going to be running. That's going to be easy. But yeah, let's move on. Okay, so the cylinder is on, attached. I actually drove around town with that attached, as well as the little on-off box there next to it, and did fine. It really, I think it's in the right spot. I didn't have any issues with driving, so that's the big thing. And it's pretty close to lining up. You're supposed to get within an inch, and I'm within an inch of that cable lining up with the anchor point on the firewall, so that's all good. So that is the last of the objects that need to be installed. We got the main controller box underneath the driver's seat, the switch box on the kick panel, the brake actuator cylinder, and the breakaway box over here. So that is probably the most difficult part of all this, is getting that stuff installed. Hey, look, hold on, wait a minute, it's a Terry.
Where?
So that's probably the most difficult part of this whole process, is getting those physical parts installed in the Jeep, finding a place to put them. But you know, I made a joke earlier about wiring, and it's actually got a really good wiring diagram here. It's colorful. That honestly, the wiring and running of the airlines looks like the easiest part of this whole process, and I am not one that enjoys electrical stuff, but this looks really simplistic. Red to red, blue to blue, blah 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 blah. I gotta find the brake light line on the tow vehicle harness, but other than that, there is a LED light that you mount on the back of the rear view mirror, but from what I understand, there's not a wire that I can tie into on the Jeep Wrangler, on the JL Jeep Wrangler. So I'm going to have to look into getting another type of switch to activate that light. I don't even know that I need that light. Honestly, the light on the Subaru, we can't see it in the rearview camera. You're supposed to be able to see it, and I've played with the settings on our backup camera on that motorhome, and you just can't see it. I mean, I can see it light up when I'm standing out there, watching it, but from inside the motorhome, that backup camera, it's not visible. It just isn't. I don't know if it's not bright enough or what the deal is, but so I don't know that I'm even going to put it on this Jeep. So there's that. It is time to get busy wiring this thing, and I'll show you the different steps, as far as where I'm at in the process, but I'm not going to bore you with showing how I chase these wires. Okay, I know it's only been like a blip for you guys, but for me it's been a week or so. I was running up against the clock, and when I start running up against the clock, I start getting in a hurry and I start messing up. So instead of doing that, I stopped what I was doing and ran some errands. So then life kind of got in the way a little bit. So now I'm back at it. Now I do have the wires ran through the firewall, and over to the power side. Hopefully you can see that. I don't know. My flashlight's not running out of juice here. But over here to the battery side, and I've got the air line ran through the firewall as well. I just tied it all off up here under the hood and to wait until I had a moment to come back to it. So, I mean, really all I have to do is just tie in these lines to the tow wiring harness and to a power source, and do that brake, the air line for the brake. That's it. I mean, it's really straightforward. The line's not long enough to reach, so I've got to add some more wire to reach where I need it to go, but pretty simple. I mean, well, okay. Pretty straightforward. How about that? Not simple, just it's pretty straightforward. So I'll try to finish this up today, so this weekend we can pull the Jeep when we go to the lake. I'm sorry, did I say straightforward? So I don't know if I've mentioned this on this install or not, but I installed the Mopar wiring harness for towed vehicles, dinghies, and they have a proprietary umbilical cord, and come to find out that those wires for the towed wiring are not the standard color. So when the instructions called for green to green and yellow to yellow, well, there was no yellow wire, and so I had to dig around on the internet and pulled up a wiring diagram for the standard Pollock umbilical cord, and then the Mopar Pollock umbilical cord, both made by the same company, but the wires are different colors on the Mopar umbilical cord, but they have to match up to the right spots on the motorhome. So I was able to compare the two and figure out which wire was which wire, because one of the things that I couldn't find for the Duo was what the yellow and green wires were for. So I had to figure that out by what wires they were going to on a standard wired vehicle. So not quite as straightforward. I've got some cleanup to do. But everything's hooked up. The wiring is all hooked up, so I've got some cleanup to do. I also came over here and I got the brake line plumbed in. Not real happy with the way it looks, but my gosh, you're adding 2, 4, 6 inches of, whoa. Here, let me get in the light. yeah, not real happy with the way it looks, but you're adding 6 inches of tubing there to that airline. So other than I could cut a few inches off the existing line, I don't know why. Okay, a lot of you will probably just trim off a few inches off the other line to make it look good. I couldn't talk myself into doing it. So I've got one more airline to put on, then put the fuse in the fuse connector and see if this thing works. Boy, I hope it does. Anyway, I'm not an expert. This was my first time doing this, folks. I've never done this before, but it functions now. So I've got to go through and clean everything up, put all the wires tucked away where they need to be, pull that kick panel off and tuck away the wires and the airlines back behind that kick panel so they're not out in the floorboard and looking kind of, I don't know, rigged a bit. But yeah, I pulled that breakaway switch. It put the brakes on, which is what it's supposed to do. So it functions. That's how you're told to test if it functions. Now the next step is there's some videos online that will tell you how to do this. I don't want to try to tell you how to set it up and be wrong. So please, look up the videos for installing this. None of them really go into detail, but in the end they tell you how to set it up by on that box on the kick panel. You adjust the tension, or it's not tension, it's reactivity or whatever. Hold tight a second. So those videos will help you set up the sensitivity. That was the word I was looking for. That knob on the side of that box at the kick panel, that's where you adjust the sensitivity at. They'll do a better job of explaining it than I will. What I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of lighten it up, probably maybe a quarter off the least sensitive position, and then take it for a drive, pull it behind the motorhome and test it, see how it functions, and make adjustments from there. The Subaru, which is a little bit lighter vehicle than this, they're pretty close to the same weight, I think. Maybe a little bit lighter. I'd have to look. I'm probably way off on that one too, but I think it's set about a quarter off bottom, so I'll try that. And I'm going to put a camera down there just for peace of mind, just to make sure it's doing its job, because I mean, without watching it, unless you set it too tight, you really don't know that it's doing its job, I guess, So I'm going to do that too. So anyway, look guys, I don't do these how-to installation videos a whole lot, especially this kind of in-depth type of installation. The main idea was to give you guys an idea of how to get this installed, and really just kind of how straightforward it is to get this installed. If you've got the mechanical ability, I'm waving my hands like that's mechanical ability. If you've got the mechanical ability and you've got the time, do it yourself. Don't go pay a Camping World or an RV shop to do it. Just do it yourself. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I hope it was helpful. Give this like a big thumbs up for me if you would. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, check us out. We like to RV, we like to travel, and that's what this channel is about. We'll catch y'all down the trail.